Morning, First Baptist. We're going to be looking at Psalm 22 this morning. So if you have your scriptures, you can open up to Psalm 22. Psalm 22 is going to be another salvific psalm of David. It's going to follow the same kind of basic structure that we have seen, though it's going to be a bit longer. The basic structure that we've seen with the salvific psalms are David expressing his plight and the danger that is around him, and expressing his emotions about that, and then calling out to God for salvation, receiving that salvation, and then turning and praising God for that salvation. So that is going to be the basic structure that we see, that we've seen so many times in these psalms, these beginning psalms. And we're going to see that structure again in Psalm 22. So you have David's plight, David's call for salvation, David receiving salvation from the Lord, and then David turning and praising God for the salvation. So, of course, there's always sometimes going to be a little bit of variance in there, but for the most part, those are the building blocks of these psalms. So Psalm 22 follows that rubric. Let's take a look at it. And once again, we're reminded of just how up and down the emotions of the Psalms can be. And it's just very true to life, isn't it? How, one day we can be on top of the world, feeling as if nothing can hurt us, and how God has seemed to met all of our needs. And the next day we can wake up and we can feel down in the dumps and feeling as though God is far away from us. So we're once again reminded of that in Psalm 22, and it's just so true to life how that is. And that's probably why the Psalms have been so resonant with people for so many years, is because they're just so accurate, and they deal with human emotion so clearly and so helpfully. So Psalm 22, verse 1, my God, why have you forsaken me? And another note before we start on Psalm 22, we have to remember that, while these Psalms have a initial fulfillment in the life of David, the New Testament authors use a lot of Psalms as being prophetic, in that they are telling the story of Christ as well, which he would come, of course, many thousands of years later. So not only are we seeing this psalm played out in the life of David, we also are seeing this psalm played out in the life of Christ. And I shouldn't just say just the New Testament writers saw these. Christ himself saw some of the psalms as being, well, not just some of the psalms, but all of the Old Testament scriptures as being ultimately fulfilled in his life. So, that's why he quoted this on the cross. But anyway, so that is also an important note to keep in mind when you're reading the Psalms. Psalm 22, verse 1, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. So the first few verses is the plight of David, of course. Verse 3 through 5 is going to do something that happens frequently in the Psalms. He's going to point to the history of Yahweh delivering Israel from their captivity, from their enemies. And of course, this is epitomized with the Exodus. And when God came to Moses in the burning bush, he says, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And of course, that entails all of the historical salvation that Yahweh has been bringing to the people of Israel as a means to garner confidence in God bringing salvation in the future. So David's pointing to that in verse 3. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted. They trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried, and were rescued. In you they trusted, and were not put to shame. So how can this have bearing in our life? Well, look to the past. Look to the past when you're facing trouble. Look to the past and see the ways that God's delivered you, but not just to your life. Look to the past of other people's lives. Read biographies, read books about people, listen to your friends, listen to people, and draw the strength of faith from those wells of the grace of God that has brought many deliverances to people in the past. So that is the takeaway we can take from that. David gets back into the dumps a bit though, and he feels as though he's different than the people that God has saved. Right? Have you ever felt like that? Like, okay, yeah, God delivered this person, but I am different. David is there as well with us. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by mankind and despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They make mouths at me. They wag their heads. And this is what they're saying to him. He trusts in the Lord. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him, for he delights in him. And of course, we see this play out almost word for word in the life of Christ on the death. They're calling out, if God is your father, let him deliver you. If truly you are a prophet, let Elijah deliver you. All of these things. But this sadness, this depression, this affliction is lifted by faith. Yet you are he who took me from the womb. You made me trust you at my mother's breasts. On you was I cast from birth, and from my mother's womb you have been my God. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, and there is none to help. Many bulls encompass me. Strong bulls of Bashan surround me. And the bulls of Bashan they're very healthy, so they're very strong and big. They open wide their mouths at me like a ravening and a roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within my breast. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death. So he's facing some serious affliction. He's kind of recounting his afflictions. For dogs encompass me. A company of evildoers encircles me. They have pierced my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. They stare and gloat over me. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Once again, these are verses that are used prophetically to speak of Christ. Once again, we see that. They had historical reference with David, but then they have prophetic reference with regards to Christ. Verse 19, and this is where we see the salvation of God come into the life of David. But you, O Lord, do not be far off. O you, my help, come quickly to my aid. Deliver my soul from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dog. Save me from the mouth of the lion. You have rescued me from the horns of the wild oxen. So there you go, David calling out for salvation to God and then receiving the salvation of God in those three verses. And then here, David's going to turn and seek to praise people for the salvation that God has brought to him. And there's going to be three spheres of that praise. And these are the three spheres that we ought to keep in mind when we are seeking to be ministers and seeking to be witnesses for the gospel and the salvation that God has brought to us. The first sphere is, for David, it is Israel. And that would be his circle of influence, right? The people that are around him, the people of his city, the people that are of the same culture, etc. And then verse 27, we see him expand that sphere, and his eyes for missions and his eyes for witnessing are going to go to the ends of the earth. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord. All the families of the nations shall worship before you. So David is saying, it can't just be people around me. It has to be everybody. And you might be wondering, well, what could the third sphere possibly be? Well, the third sphere is not, unlike what we might think, it does not end with just the people in this world. The third sphere is the future people, right? Leaving a legacy. Verse 31, they shall come and proclaim his righteousness to a people yet unborn, that he has done it. So we should be living our lives that we would be a witness to people who are not even here yet, and leaving a legacy of faith for those who would come behind us. I haven't read these verses yet. Let me read them. So this is the first sphere in verse 22. I will tell of your name to my brothers. In the midst of the congregation, I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. And all you offspring of Jacob, glorify him. And stand in awe of him, all you offspring of Israel. For he has not despised or abhorred the affliction or the afflicted. And he has not hidden his face from him. But he has heard when he cried to him. From you comes my praise in the great congregation. My vows I will perform before those who fear him. The afflicted shall eat and be satisfied. Those who seek him shall praise the Lord. May your hearts live forever. First sphere, people of his influence, right? People who are like him, his brothers, his countrymen, people of his culture. We obviously have circles of influence that we need to be witnessing to. But David expands that, right? He doesn't want to just be witnessing to people who are like him. He wants to be witnessing to the ends of the earth. Verse 27, all the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations shall worship before you. For kingship belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. So God is not just the God of Israel. God is the God of all the nations. Yahweh is the Lord of all, and all will come to him from all the nations and receive the salvation that David is describing. Verse 29, all the prosperous of the earth eat and worship. Before him shall bow down all who go down to the dust, even the one who could not keep himself alive. Posterity shall serve him. It shall be told of the Lord. So verse 31 is the third sphere, which is people who aren't even here yet, people who have not been born, leaving a legacy for those people. Posterity shall serve him. It shall be told of the Lord in the coming generation. They shall come and proclaim his righteousness to a people yet unborn, that he has done it. So these three spheres we must keep in mind when we're seeking to be witnesses. And as we end this devotional, I want you to consider, how are you affecting three spheres? We don't want to just get caught up with just the one sphere. Maybe we have a broader emphasis in the one sphere, in a certain sphere, right? Like a missionary who's living abroad, they have a very big emphasis in the nations, right? But how are you seeking to accomplish these witnessing in these three generations? Because if we were to be able to cover our bases when it comes to praising the name of God in our circles right now, and then to the ends of the earth, and so that we're setting it up for the future, we would be really well set, for continuing to be faithful to the truth that's been handed down to us from the previous generation. So just consider that, and maybe even write down some names of people that you have in mind that you would like to witness to, or if it's not a name, maybe it's a nation, or maybe it's a missionary that you're considering praying for or supporting, and then just how are you setting yourself up to be a witness to the next generation. I think if we need to think in these terms, they're biblical, and I think they will also keep us faithful to the task that we've been given. So consider that. That's my challenge to you, is to seriously consider those spheres, and also make sure that you are keeping your mind and heart aligned with the truth of God and trusting in him when things get tough. So we are going to call it on Psalm 22 here. Tomorrow, Pastor Lovelady will be going, and then Friday we will have a devotional on Psalm 23. So looking forward to all of that, and hope you all are doing well, and looking forward to meeting very soon. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and then we will see you tomorrow with Pastor Lovelady, and then I will see you Friday. So hope you have a good rest of the day.